All right, so I think I promised I would do something about Flash and how my efforts are going to make sure people can play it. And I did a little bit more troubleshooting today, but I realized I'd like to get it out before Christmas, but there's really no need to. I'm just probably going to update the little, what do you call it, below each game on the Ancon Arcade. I'm just going to put a note of keep watching this space for further instructions. It can take another week or so. It doesn't really matter. But I thought, hey, let's talk about Flash a little bit, you know? So the picture you're looking at that I'm going to insert into this whole thing, the white building in the center and the left, there's lots of trees there, I guess. That's my old elementary school, right? And if you look at the stairways that you get up there, between the trees, there's a stairway there with white railing. I remember I ended up going into the lobby there early one morning. I usually didn't arrive that early at school, but I think my parents had to be at work earlier or something, so they dropped me off earlier. And I remember I saw these two kids who were a little bit older than I was, and they were just sitting there throwing these Game Boy cartridges at each other, you know. And I had a Game Boy, but it was only one game. It was Super Mario or something. I only had one game, and these kids were throwing these cartridges at each other. You know, remember the I might put a picture in that of that as well. But you basically had this handheld console before phones and everything, and then every game wasn't on on the device, but you had to put these little cartridges in the back, and that's also how. And I remember thinking, oh my God, like these people have a lot of games and I've like one of them. And it's like, oh my God, this is so terrible. They're just throwing it at each other. But another thing that required cartridges was just the consoles, little Super Nintendo and that sort of thing. And I didn't have that for sure. But I do remember that the store you see on the right, it's a little, not really a supermarket. It's not very super, but basically it's a couple aisles, right? And that used to be there even 20 years ago. Maybe they upgraded, but this is basically a little bodega or a little corner store thing. And things were a little bit more liberal in those days, back in the old country. After school, even if you were first or second grade, you could just waltz out of the school and go next door and go into the store and buy something or something like that. And I remember we used to run down there. We were either on the second or third story. If you look at the middle, you can see the 3 stories of the white building. I think we were on the third one or the second one. But we would always rush down to the corner store here, not because we wanted to really buy anything, but because they had a Nintendo in there. But the older kids would always get to it. So it was like, oh my God. So those were the kind of influences that led me to think of even then that, oh man, there must be a better way. Like, the kids are always at the Nintendo at the store, and all these other kids are, throwing their cartridges at each other. So I don't think it's that surprising that I ended up saying, hey, there's free games online. You can just bundle them all together and make something pretty cool out of it, right? But anyways, I'll tell another inspiration for that I remember thinking about. That there's got to be a better way of doing games than just these dumb cartridges. And this was in the early 90s, okay? But we'll talk about that tomorrow. It involves something called teletext, which American listeners are not going to be aware of, but we'll talk about it tomorrow.